So, Grace, back to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dave. So essentially what the next half an hour of the meeting time is allotted to is for the format and rule changes or updates that are happening with season 2 for the National Pickleball League. So we've got David Anjou joining us tonight, who's going to run through that. So it's obviously most imperative to those that are going to be reffing during that season. So they're well aware. They've been sent some communications to let them know that they are reffing for this next season too. But if you're just wanting to stick around and just listen, then you're more than welcome as well. So, David, I'd love for you to jump on and join us.
Thanks, Grace.
No
Hello,
worries.
everyone. Thanks for having me at 7 o'clock on a Monday night. I'm sure you guys are eager to get off this call nice and quickly. So I'll keep this as brief as I can. The main reason for me jumping on the call really is an opportunity for you guys to ask us questions. So firstly, before we get into it, I just want to say a big thank you again for everyone that participated and helped during season 1. Overall, we think it was a massive success, and we really enjoyed, how far people moved forward over the last sort of 6 to 12 months, and the season 1 finals were, something that was pretty special. We think from a pickleball playing perspective, and that couldn't have been done without all you guys on the phone. And so yeah, a big thank you from the NPL for all the help that you put throughout the season. And we're just excited and ready to go again for season 2. So it's not too far away now. August 17 is round 1. At a high level, the season is going to be pretty similar in regards to expectations and format from what we had in season 1. So we've chosen to keep the general gist of the format the same. So we've got our 5 rounds, and then we have our finals format, which will continue as it was in season 1. Now I've just tried to share my screen and it's coming up with an error on my end.
That's okay. I can probably make so that you can do that. One moment. There you go.
Okay. So you guys can see my...
Yeah, we can see that.
Screen. Awesome. Okay. That's great. So what I might do is we'll fly through just a couple of slides to go through. The main reference point obviously will be the rules. There will be a final version of those rules sent after this call, but I do also want to, the reality of how these rules have come about has been, a continually iterative process. And so I do welcome conversation on this discussion. If we do think that something is going to make a significant difference, if we make a change, we have the opportunity to do that now in advance of the season starting. So there have been a couple of changes since the version that is online that have been made, and that is off the back of feedback that some of you have submitted, some players that you have, and also obviously conversations I've had with David on the call, and PAA more broadly. So without further ado, I'll just fly through, I guess, the key questions, the key things, just to make sure we are aware of the major changes. So last season, we had a situation where we still had the 6 players, but quite often the 5th and 6th player in each team either played 0 or only 1 or 2 games each day. And so we have made the change to ensure that all players will be playing a minimum of 2 games per match, which is a minimum of 4 games per day. The way that has been achieved and the changes are that we will be playing the 3rd singles in all scenarios. So the 1st, 2nd and 3rd singles will play no matter what the score is after the first 2 singles. The obvious first question that will be asked is, what happens if that's a dead rubber, and will the players still be participating? Yes, they are. From a financial perspective, it's really important for the players, the way their contracts are structured. Wins do contribute to the amount of prize money that they will be paid at the end of the season. So therefore, all the players should be fighting to tick off as many wins as they can throughout the course of the year. The other thing is it will be really important in regards to percentage and therefore qualification for finals. If we played that back into season one, the reality is those games would have impacted 2 of the 3 state final positions for the final teams. So we're confident that all those matches will not be dead rubbers and that they will be played. Obviously, everything also goes on to Duper each week. The second major change that we have is the mixed doubles. So previously that was the 2 pairs with a player swap at 11 and the game finishing at 22. We've just extended that concept. So there is another player swap at 22 and the game finishes at 33. So therefore you'll have every player playing both at least a singles and a mixed doubles, and likely your number 1 and 2 players playing the gendered doubles in addition to that. So they're to be honest, they're the biggest changes that have occurred from a format perspective. A couple of other subtle changes to be aware of. The playing order has a little bit of flex in it. To accommodate, obviously, last season we had the female doubles always starting in the gendered and finishing on the men's doubles. So in season 2, the main change that we have there is that will alternate throughout the course of the year. So at the start of the season, it will be the women's doubles finishing, so the first of those iterations, and then the second half of the season, it will be the men's doubles finishing. When it comes to finals, the highest ranked team will have the choice as to whether the men's or the women's doubles finishes. It finishes off the gendered doubles. Alongside that will, whether the men's or women's doubles starts or finishes, will determine whether the men's or women's singles is played in set 1 or set 3. We have this quite clearly written out in the rules, and so if you do have questions about how that will work, it will be relatively straightforward, and it will all be defined at the start of the season. So when we have our the player sheets and scorecards, they'll all be printed, and you'll just follow what the order is on those sheets. Final main change really is the deal breaker. So the order of the deal breaker has changed, and I can actually see there's an error on this slide because I've quickly copied the old ones. So I will amend that 9 there. So the main changes here is it's 1st to 25. It's rally scoring, so that's the same. It's just that the order of the way those games have been played has alternated. It has changed significantly from last season. We've removed the men's and women's doubles pair 2 version, and we've incorporated the mixed doubles earlier into the game. And the idea behind this is obviously to showcase the best of all of the formats that we have playing. That probably covers the main changes. Couple of quick other ones from me before I will sort of go through, I guess, key questions from everyone here is, so venues are confirmed. So Focus Pickleball and the JAR Pickleball Club. So no change in Queensland and in Victoria. New South Wales has been moved though to Voyager in Seaforth. These are the venues for the whole of the season. We do have a wet weather plan in place. So the way that will work is that a decision will be made. So we have already pre-booked indoor venues for each of the 5 rounds in New South Wales and in Queensland. And so in the event that we need that the weather is looking unplayable, then we will make that call on the Thursday to move it to the indoor venue. This will give obviously you as referees, but also the players enough time to prepare, and it does ensure that all the games will occur on the scheduled days as planned. Now, we probably will face the scenario where inclement weather happens that wasn't forecast. Just as we did last time, we'll push through as much as we can and play the games within reason into the evening. We will set some hard guidelines around when the games will finish, and those games will be continued in the following weeks. The players themselves have committed to being available though till 10 p.m. on every night. There is absolutely no scenario where we want that occurring. So we'll work to ensure that the games are wrapped up as quickly as possible, and if need be, move to those indoor venues partway through the day. Key messages, I guess, from myself, which are other subtle changes that may or may not have been picked up. So we have officially introduced, the way it's written in the rules is that there are no referee briefings. What we will be doing, though, is one referee briefing from the head referee at the start of every game. So that's to occur at 9:20, with the game set to start at 9:30. So players by this time should already have been warmed up. And the idea here is to make sure that we go through those key pieces of information and make sure that there's no outstanding questions, I guess, from the players. Why do we believe that no referee briefings are required? For me, it's quite simple. These players are playing in exactly the same format for the course of the season. So we would be concerned if we need to be asking lots of different questions as we're about to flip the coin and jump straight onto court. Obviously, key things such as the coin toss. The coin toss will actually also have been decided based on home and away allocations. So that will also be removed. So you guys will be able to jump straight into it, and that'll be really clearly denoted on the scorecards. The only thing that obviously will need to happen each time is the fun topic that you guys were just talking about when I jumped on the call, which is that around paddle checking and ticking off those boxes before each set begins. Really important for us that we have these games starting on time. Now, I know a lot of that relies on us as an organisation and the players, but I guess what we're really raised to in shifting, I guess, what I think is a bit of a problem in pickleball in Australia, which is the laissez-faire sort of approach of players in regards to expectations around time and when games are to start. This obviously, we're in the early days of professionalising pickleball in Australia, and if these players do want to continue to get paid, they need to start on time as scheduled, because that is something that's going to be critical long term in regards to broadcasts and expectations around anyone who is actually watching or consuming the product online or in person. So for us, I guess the big ask is, we will want to start enforcing the rules in regards to when players are exceeded their allocation time in regards to getting expected to get on court. We'll be asking referees to start those games. They're going to take once of having some again for the rest of the season. Similar on that vein, warm-ups. Warm-ups are 1 minute, and that is a 1 minute. It's not 1 minute of dinking, 1 minute of ground strokes and 1 minute of serving. It is a true 1 minute. Players are expected to come and warm up prior to the game starting, and then to do whatever warm up physically they require off the court, and are then to jump on and play. This is, again, around the product that we are actually producing for an external audience is one that's not just of people having a hit, but it is of the actual and people are there to watch. There is no warm-up between the player swaps for the mixed doubles and the gender doubles. So when the teams reach 11 or 22 for each of those respective games, the expectation is that the players the 4 players come off the court and 4 new players go on. Whoever receives the serving ban will go back onto the exactly same position that person who had the serving ban on. And essentially, you should be simply replacing, the name of Bob with Charlotte, whoever it is, or whoever is obviously jumped onto the court, and that should mean that then the game can continue without any significant delay. An ask from us. Some of you are already amazing at this. Kelvin, I'll give you a shout out. I don't know how you had a voice after Melbourne champs the other week, but calling the score loudly. So there are some changes to how the broadcast is being done. So there are actually 9 professional cameras across each of the courts, rather than what last time we had 3, a professional camera at each location and then our mobile cameras. So there will be 9 actual high quality digital cameras on streaming all of these, and therefore that all of them will have live scores connected to it. The broadcaster will be taking that from, hopefully hearing those calls being yelled out. Now they're only going to be, a couple of meters, set up a couple of meters away from you as referees, but we just need to make sure that where possible, we can all hear the score, and therefore that can be updated and obviously published online. Last one, change of ends. And so sorry for some confusion that exists in the current rules that are published. I will be updating that and sending this out to you following this call. That's clearly incorrect on that screen there. I was partway through updating that. That's meant to say singles 6. I'm going to quickly get rid of that and share the live version. Bear with me 2 seconds. So singles 6, doubles are then 6, 17 and 28. We're not doing a change of ends when they do the swap over. The deal breaker is 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, increasing by 6 as we move along. That's probably it from me. And sorry, it's probably taken a little bit longer than I thought to fly through all of that. But what I wanted to do now is, I guess, throw it over to questions for anyone on the call.
David, you did have 1 or 2 that have come up in the chat, if you can see the chat.
Yeah, sure can. Give me 2 seconds. Sorry.
Ignore mine, Dave. You covered it.
That was from Brad.
Yeah, no worries, Brad. Yeah, Paul, great call out. Yes, we are looking into this in regards to having the referees mic'd up. So I'll come back to you exactly how that will work and then how that will integrate with the broadcast. Again, for an update on the broadcast, we are doing, so there's 9 individual streams and then there's 1 super broadcast. So there'll be 1 broadcast because the games are all starting at the same time. There will be 1 broadcast where the commentators are jumping between Melbourne, New South Wales and Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, commentating on whichever match they think is the most interesting and has the most relevance, I guess, for the season, or is, worthy of that discussion. And that'll allow, hopefully, create quite an interesting product. So, yes, I'll come back to you specifically as to what will happen with mics for referees. Mark Taylor asked a question which is around, will a player get sacrificed? So there is players, the player with the number 1 Duper rating will be the number 1 player for the singles each season. So the only scenario will be player 2 and 3, because it's a flip of a coin, and obviously the captains can pick and choose who that person is. We think that'll, it'll play out fairly over the course of the season. So we're sort of comfortable that the Duper rating situation will improve what we had in season 1, which was often player 3 playing against the number 1 player. So as a step forward.
The only thing there, David, though, is if you get a Rob Sterling that comes out of nowhere that has no Duper rating and should be the clear number 1, then there needs to be an adjustment, which we've previously discussed, where he goes as number 1. But you could still, as a team, sacrifice the next player to be against their number 2 so that you've got a better chance of winning the singles overall. My query was that any player that gets theory sacrificed needs to understand that it's going to affect their wins and losses overall. And you've said that they will get paid less if that's the case, based on wins and losses. So there just needs to be, the players need to understand that if they are going to agree to get sacrificed, which would be for the good of the team, that maybe there's an allowance that their wins and losses don't come into the calculation for their payment.
Yeah, there's a few mechanisms in the contracts that sort of will. Yeah, it definitely makes sense, Mark. There are a few mechanisms in the contract that sort of allow for that. So specifically, if I try and go through each of the points, specifically example, obviously there will be scenarios, and that certainly will exist at the start, where we'll have these non-ranked players potentially playing better than they are. Now, this is one of those issues that we think will continue to improve itself as we keep updating their Duper throughout the course of the season. But there definitely will be a scenario where, let's use Rob, where perhaps their Duper hasn't caught up by the end. There is the ability for the teams to make a request to have a player play up at position 1. And that will be assessed on a case-by-case basis. It's not something that is designed to be chop and changing each week. It's where there's a clear discrepancy or error based on the rating system. So we'll work through that. As far as the sacrificing of games, whilst it is important, we are talking relatively minimal percentages. So the amount of money that the teams will win if the team wins overall is significantly more impactful than, say, the loss of one set. We're talking, tens, like $10 or here or there, based on it. It's a nod towards the future rather than necessarily being hundreds of dollars based on, say, a loss of a single game that would be sacrificed. Again, there are some clauses in the contract which allow teams to shift those things if that's required. So question around pressure around players and warm-ups. Honestly, Mike, I think it's a great question. If they want to get warmed up, standing on a court and doing dinking is not warming them up. Like, if you're a professional athlete, as you see some of the players doing, they should be doing things such as using bands, jogging down, just like other professional athletes do, and doing the warm-up rooms prior to, say, playing at the Oz Open or whatnot. So, look, there might be some education that we need to do in that space. However, jumping on the court is not actually what I would consider a warm-up. It's around what they've done in the half an hour prior to getting onto the court.
But David, what about
question
coaching?
from Brad? Yeah, sorry. Coaching. Sorry, what are you asking, Kelvin?
Coaching. That's changed a little bit from season 1, where I think I read in your rules for season 2 that you can coach from the sideline, but not out on the court. Is that correct? And coach.
Yeah, it's not meant to have. Sorry, if there has been changes, I'll need to double check specifically what they are. The rule, like, that was something that evolved obviously over the course of season 1. So coaching can occur from the sidelines, but just at no stage, anyone who's not participating in the game is not allowed on the court. So, just like the issue that we had in the finals, if the players want to have a conversation with their team whilst they're on the court, then a timeout, that's the purpose of calling a timeout. And the expectation is the player who is on the court goes off the court and has the conversation with their team members there. As for coaching, as long as the ball is dead, then the players are allowed to say anything to their teammates in regards to, telling them to hit it to a backhand, telling them to come into the net more. All of those sorts of things are allowed as long as the ball is dead. They just can't yell that out during the course of a point. I would expect similar things that we follow the process around warnings and a bit of common sense in regards to going through the process before we dock points for those sorts of things. But what we won't accept is any abuse towards yourselves as referees. So the minute that happens, I think you guys are all clear as to what action should be taken.
David, just on Kelvin's point as well, I assume that the earbud rule is still in then, that players aren't to use earbuds for live coaching while playing?
Say that again, sorry.
At the moment, earbuds are not allowed on court. It's one of the rules for live coaching. So I assume with this new rule, it's the same thing because the ball would be live. You don't want people using earbuds for live coaching mid-game?
Correct. Yeah. So no, we're not. If we're at that level, I'll be slightly concerned. But I'm glad that there is an official rule that covers that. So the coaching is definitely not live during the point, but it is allowed during the games, as in when the ball is dead. Again, just to try and address that issue for player one and the sacrifice, we're sort of juggling a situation where we do want the captains to have that choice. And so we're not actually against the idea of the sacrificial player, I guess, in that sense, if it can be advantageous for the teams. What we don't want, though, is the distinct situation of the number one player playing against the number three player. That doesn't lead to the long-term value of the product. So we definitely want our number one singles players playing against each other. 2 or 3, there is a degree of flex in there. This is stuff that we expect to change again as we head into season 3. I guess it's we're on a little bit of a journey for us to get to the end product in that space. Points taken, Mark and Paul. But as I said, this one will be set. So it is number 1 for Duper, and 2 or 3 is captain's choice. Happy to have a chat over a beer over those rules specifically. I think I've ticked off all the questions that are in the chat. Are there any other questions from anyone else?
David, it's David J. There was a question that got lost back there from Brad. And the question was, after a couple of last season's contentious situations, have players been briefed on their behavioural obligations and the consequences that apply if they commit verbal or physical violations?
The simple answer is yes. There's a number of things that we've taken as a league as part of this. So their player contracts certainly have a tighter list of expectations around that, and each of the players have individually re-signed off on the player code of conduct. There's another survey going out to the players, or not survey, a Q&A that they all have to respond to, which speaks to some of these expectations. What I would also say is that last year, which covers about half the players, mid-season we had a number of, I guess, player webinars and all-in briefings to try and address some of the issues and concerns that we had. So, look, what I guess the direct answer to the question is a lot has been done in regards to briefing these players. How the players will respond and what their obligations are to those obligations. I obviously can't speak. We've got 62 new players for this season, so there is something for us to work through. Obviously, if there are issues and concerns, please raise those with us, if they can't be addressed at the time. And David, there's probably one I might throw over to yourself. As you and I have discussed, we have no concerns with technical warnings and fouls being issued where players step outside of the expectations as per PAA's code of conduct and NPL's code of conduct as well.
And Amanda, in response to your question, can you get a copy of the player code of conduct? That was on the meeting notes that Grace did send out along with the rules.
And yes, I will send out the updated final versions of these rules. Whether it's directly through everyone here or via Grace or David, you'll receive those shortly.
I think that's everyone.
Awesome. Well, big final thank you from me. Just so you are aware, so Ron will be in Queensland for round 1. I'll be in New South Wales, and Dylan Liam will be in Victoria. Obviously, I'm available at any time, at any stage, via phone or email if you do have further questions. And yeah, happy to continue to discuss things. If things aren't working, we will adjust the rules as we did during season 1. So please speak up if there are questions around stuff that are not working to our expectations. The idea here is to get this to the best product possible.
Fantastic. Thank you. And we've got a few thank yous coming through the chat as well. So I'm really hoping that we come into season 2 now fully prepped and ready to go. And it, like David said, if you have any questions, he's more than happy to take them via email or whatnot. So if you didn't have his details, just split them through PAA and we can forward them on as well. That's always a way through. Moving forward, so I'll just get David to send me the updated rules and I'll circulate that along with this meeting recording and from the first half of this meeting too, with those notes that I've mentioned. And I'd like to thank you all for spending an hour with us tonight, which is obviously not the norm, but we do want to say a big thank you for joining us and giving us your Monday evening. So if you need anything at all, please do just send it through to either the officials email, which is managed by Margot, or to my email, which we can pass any questions along to Dave as well if it's more specific in regard to rulings and things like that I can't quite answer just yet. So thank you and have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks
everyone.
Thanks,
Good
everyone.
night.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good night.
Cheers.
Good night.